All right, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Future Economics podcast. This is the main episode, pilot episode, and then we'll be doing our testing. So our brief topic will be the oil crisis and the impact it has in the Gambia. So, Mr. Bali, can you give us an overview about the situation in the Gambia? Because still now the war is still ongoing, and then there's no timeline provided as to when it is going to end. Because every time you hear communication from the American side and also from the Iranian side contradicting each other. So still now, even today, the oil prices have risen again. So when do you believe, or what impact is it currently having in the economy of the Gambia and the socio-economic life of the people?
Thank you so much, Mr. Kaya. Thank you for having me here on this wonderful podcast to discuss about this important issue that is affecting not only the Gambia but global, the entire people of the world. So, as we are all aware that there is an ongoing war between Iran and America. So, Iran holds a strategic position in terms of the transportation of oil. So that's the state of Hormuz. So any global incident or war drives the prices of oil. So the impact of this is enormous. The impact is quite complex and then touches in every sector of the economy. As you know, oil is the primary ingredient for energy, especially for the Gambia. So, and energy is connected to our daily lives. So, an increase in oil prices affects not only our macroeconomic variables, but also our daily lives of the Gambian. Everyone knows it primarily for the average Gambian through the increase in the prices of transportation. We will have seen an increment of $5, flat $5 increase in transportation costs. So if you are paying 4 transport units a day, that's an increment of $20 to $25 just in a single day. So that's how the average Gambian feels it. But the ones who have to buy fuel will feel a $15 per liter increment. So on the businesses side, they will also be feeling a $15 increment per liter of what they are using. So that's on the average Gambian. Its effect on the government itself at the national level cannot be underestimated, since we know that the government earns a lot of revenue from this from selling oil. So it has to reduce its own revenue, the tax revenue it earns from it. So that also reduces the national revenue, national income. So yeah, the impact of this oil crisis is just too much.
Yes, regarding the purchasing power, because I think the inflation right now it's very high, given because it affects everything, especially the electricity in the Gambia or West Africa generally depends heavily on oil, and then transportation, movement, and all of that depends on oil. So,
Mhm.
in terms of the purchasing power of the Gambians, how has it affected like their livelihood, how what they eat, and the cost of foods, the basic needs? How do you see it? How has it affected them?
Yeah, it has affected them quite a lot. As we know, oil is a major factor in the basket of the average Gambian. As I mentioned earlier, transportation costs from primary school students to university students to the average Gambian commuting from one place to another, from work to family visits and everything. Transportation is a major part of it. And then we understand that Gambia is a food import dependent country. So the choke point from the Strait of Hormuz have made it very difficult for the ships to pass through. So they have to go through Africa to be able to move goods. So that increase in transportation costs also is transferred to the prices of goods and services, from the basic rice to flour and everything. So it has really impacted the purchasing power of the average Gambian by reducing their purchasing power. So some experts are calculating that it's about 15% reduction in purchasing power. So that's quite a lot, coupling with other economic realities of the country. Yeah, it's an unexpected and an unfortunate and a very avoidable situation that we find ourselves.
Yes, so I also do you believe like it is fair for maybe because the opposition are capitalizing on this occasion or on this sad reality to criticize the government like that they did not have plan in case shocks like this happen. And how do you see it? How do you see it impacting the chances of the incumbent winning the upcoming election? Because people are really struggling and they're not able to afford the food that they used to be able to afford. They were even poor, and now they're even poorer, and they're feeling it. And then we know this can really hamper the chances of the incumbent president, Mr. Adamo. His Excellency President Adam Barrow election in 2020. How do you see this thing affecting his chances in the next election?
Yeah, it's an unfortunate situation though, but I think the oppositions are quite right in terms of highlighting deep structural issues in the country, which this thing exposes. There is a global an issue that happens, let's say, thousands of miles away. Why is it affecting our country when there are other countries that are not well affected? So it actually exposes our structural vulnerabilities in terms of industrialization, food importation, and not having enough oil bunkers to be able to hold at least 3 months of supply or so. So the oppositions, of course, as an opposition, they will capitalize on this to highlight how vulnerable the country is against supply side shocks. And then they are quite right in that case. In terms of its effect on the upcoming election, I'm not sure if it's going to be a deciding factor, since the incumbent seems to already mark his position as the next leader, and then the oppositions are not quite doing enough to vocalize and then capitalize on the situation to be able to give a message that resonates with the population, for them to quite understand the vulnerabilities they face structurally, to convince them to cast their votes for them. So it's a concerning issue, but the opposition is not capable enough to convince the masses against the incumbent.
Yeah, maybe one last question. Do you believe that it is fair? Because given that the Gambia is not well endowed in most of these resources such as oil, such as gas, so it will be really unfair to hold the incumbent accountable to say, well, we should have been able to, like the Gambia should have been able to have such reserve, because we do not have the resources, like the natural endowment to have oil to begin with. So, what do you say to that?
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. It's a fair point to say the Gambia does not have enough natural resources compared to other countries. So to have, you can, when you find yourself in such situations, you can explore other possible means. You can explore other means of producing electricity enough. And then, to be fair, the government is doing enough in that aspect. In terms of solar power generations, we have seen the solar power generation in Jabang, in Basse, and the ones that are on the way. So I think that's a direction, that's a step in the right direction. So those are the things we hope will be many, so that we will avoid such unfortunate situations. So those will close the gap for these structural vulnerabilities. Yeah, and then it also highlights that we also need some work to do in terms of production. Why will these things materialize? This supply side choke points and then problems materialize in terms of food inflation. It's because we are still importing food. Almost 95% of our food is imported. So I think that's a fair point to criticize against the government, that they do not have a long-term plan, or they have not done enough to be able to secure the food line for the country.
Again, to wrap it up, perhaps you can give like three recommendations if you are to advise the president to avoid maybe in the next shock, because it happened during the COVID and then it happened
Mhm.
again during this war. So and then during the invasion of Ukraine by Russia, all of this has happened. So what steps do you believe, maybe only three policy recommendations that we need to take as a country to ensure that we will be prepared that next time such events happen, we are in a better position to ensure that the prices of food do not just catapult and just increase dramatically.
I believe we as a country should be prepared in terms of mentally. In the last 6 years, we have seen up to three events that have shaped the global affairs. We have seen COVID, that is a natural pandemic. We have seen a war, that's a unfortunate situation, and then we have also seen another war. So instead of hoping that there will be peace and then these things will not be, you hope for the worst. You think that there will be always, these things will always be there. So you will, if you do not take the right steps, you will always be in a recovery mode. Every time you plunge, you try to recover. So the best approach in this is to play the long game. In the next 10 years, you plan for it in terms of solving your deep structural issues you have, from education, down to the basics of the economy, from education to energy to institutionalization. You fix those things while providing temporary solution to the problems that are arriving. But then you could see that in terms of the long game, we are lacking behind in terms of having even a 20-year plan where the country will be in the next 20 years. We do not have it. We only have, I think, a 2027 national, 2027 maximum is up to 2030 as a plan. So we are not playing the long-term game. And if you do not play the long-term game, you will always be in a short-term problem.
Thank you, Mr. Bari. That was very, very wonderful and insightful. I believe maybe this message reaches the policymakers that they will put it into consideration because anytime such shocks happen, it is the masses that feel it, and then really it is affecting the population, and so many of them are now falling into the poverty. Uh, they are falling into poverty. Just to say that because before this new government came in, it was the poverty rate was around 40 something percent, and then it increased to 50 something percent. Perhaps in the next survey, you may hear it has risen again. So, thank you. It was a very insightful discussion.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Mr. Carr.